It's time to have a serious conversation due to recent developments here in the Brawl Stars community, and that is surrounding the concept and the idea of a potential power level 12 coming in the future. So I'm going to be honest with you all, I didn't necessarily know that this was on the minds of people here within the Brawl Stars community until I saw a video from my good pal Nubs3 here 2 days ago at the point that I'm recording this video. I freaking love his content, and I loved his content for the longest time. Believe it or not, he actually lives really close to me, so you guys might be seeing some IRL content with the man. We need to make that happen soon. But getting back on track here, he came out with a video that has a pretty polarizing title that honestly got my boot shaking a little bit when I first read it, and it's titled Level 12 is Coming. But truly, Nubs brings up a very important and great conversation here that I think is better to be had as early as possible, and that is of course level 12 here in Brawl Stars and all of the fun that could come along with it, good and bad. Given examples from adjacent games, which I'm sure we'll be discussing a little bit here in this episode, seeming to be a little bit more on the bad side of things. So to introduce this discussion, it all kind of started boiling up from a post here on Reddit 3 days ago at the point that I'm recording this video by this user GrayUI11 saying power level 12 is coming in a very facetious way, right? He's making a joke basically at the expense of what has been happening in CRL here recently. We have elite level 11 here. We have elite wild tokens. Man, it sounds scary. This is a very bad idea. Please don't do this to us. Go back being the only option. We've got elite wild tokens, the way in which you would upgrade your brawler to power level 12, and then here survive 2023 without an update introducing power level 12, a challenge. Now it's pretty blatantly obvious that this is a joke from this user here, but what really spurred the conversation was a comment here from a Supercell Response flare from Supercell 3 days ago saying, now look, I feel like here in the Brawl Stars community, it's fair to speculate quite often, seeing that the dev team really allows us to speculate quite often when it comes to developments inside of Brawl Stars and updates and other things. But given that this is such an open-ended response, it's pretty hard to come to conclusions, but it is something that you can speculate upon. In my opinion, from Supercell is pondering the fact whether he is joking, adding to the joke of this post, or being a serious one at that. So for a second, if we do allow this message to mean that he is pondering power level 12 in the future, let's try to speculate what this could look like or do to Brawl Stars here. So first of all, I do want to get this out of the way that Supercell Responses over here on Reddit has happened in the past, and I think the dev team is smart enough to realize that this is a very powerful tool when it comes to the Brawl Stars community, given the fact that we do speculate and we do come to our own conclusions quite often. That I do think this is a pretty dang smart move on Supercell's part, intentional or not. Basically getting some free feedback here from the community, though it is a small population of people replying to this comment, he is still able to gauge the overall response to a post like this, potentially toying with the idea, even with all the craziness that happened with CRL here, and you would come to expect an obvious response here from the community. A lot of people not liking the idea, right? We have this user saying don't, this user saying just focus on the balance, change real frank, thank you. No, learn from Clash Royale's mistake, don't do it. I mean, to give you guys a little peace of mind when it comes to the track record of Supercell Responses over here on Reddit, if you are very nervous for power level 12 to come to the game, a great example of a Supercell response that we've seen almost a year ago now at the point that I'm recording this video was a very popular Edgar rework over here, bringing to the table some really unique ideas to improve Edgar here in the game to make him a bit more friendly inside of the community, and Danny ended up replying. Even if Danny says there's no concrete plans yet for Edgar, we still know that the dev team is thinking about potentials for an Edgar rework if they are literally discussing innovative mechanic for him. But at the time this post came out, a lot of people in the community thought that an Edgar rework was right around the corner, and given the fact that this is now almost a year old, you can see how these Supercell responses can kind of legitimize posts here, but it doesn't necessarily mean that those ideas being somewhat legitimized would be coming out sometime soon, or even at all. So just going off of a response from a dev team member about a joking post about power level 12 saying, I don't think we need to get overall crazy worried or anything like that power level 12 is relatively close, but at the very least, it's smart to get the ball rolling. Don't start frantically saving up every bit of resource you have with your club coins and stuff like that. I think we do have a ton of time if power level 12 comes around the corner. To help dampen nervousness here a little bit before we get into what power level 12 would even look like inside of Brawl Stars and try to kind of come to a conclusion when it could come, I next want to direct your attention to another Supercell Response post just 55 days ago. So seeing that it's so new here, I think it does go a very long way in adding to this conversation, much more than a post that would be from like a year ago. But again, we have a post surrounding the idea of power level 12. This time basically how to prepare in a joking way, this guy flexing how many club coins he has. We have Frank replying to this comment here from this individual saying, this is probably going to happen in the future, 1 year give or take, and I think Frank already confirmed it's inevitable. As you can imagine, power level 11 isn't going to be top level for eternity. Then we have this individual saying mandatory Frank ping so this guy doesn't hold on to 100,000 club coins for a decade. Frank then says here to clear things up, he's likely not wrong about power level 12 coming around the corner sometime in the future, but there's no set timeline and we're not done with power level 11. Before we'd even consider power level 12, we'd A, need to be certain a big enough group of our players maxed out the brawlers they regularly play with, and B, it would have to unlock something of significance. All of our focus is on A right now and improving how people feel about power level 11. Again, we ain't done. So given the fact that Frank, the game lead here for Brawl Stars, is saying that they're not yet done with power level 11 and making it feel good here in Brawl Stars, really goes to show how much impact adding just one power level here to a game like Brawl Stars really had. Seeing that power level 11 was added on November 17th of 2021, right after the update season 9 was added to the game when Lola was first introduced. Seeing that we're in season 19 at this point, it really puts it in perspective how long ago power level 11 was first introduced here into the game, though optimized quite a lot here. But Frank states in that Reddit post at a time between the Bling update and the current update that we are in right now that they are still not happy at the state of power level 11 and are still working on it, making it feel better. So that in and of itself, I think should make you guys feel a bit better at a feasible timeline as to when power level 12 could come to the game. The dev team knowing how much work needed to be done to make power level 11 feel good here in Brawl Stars, if it still is yet to this day something that they are working on right now. So I know up until this point from what we've been discussing, we've been kind of afraid of power level 12, and I don't hold it against you guys, again, from adjacent examples from Clash Royale, and of course examples from our game with power level 11. These new features when it comes to increasing a power level and the resources that it takes to get to that new power level doesn't really come across great here with Supercell games. But even with all of these negative examples that we've had up until this point, I don't think adding a new power level to a game will result 100% in the time with a negative outcome. I think as of right now, given all of the work that power level 11 has from the dev team here in current Brawl Stars, it has a place. There could be some arguments made that it's not a great addition to the game, but it is making its way there. And seeing that the dev team isn't done working on it, and I have an idea as to what that other work that needs to be done on it could look like here, I think a new power level could be good if the dev team does it right. A first here when it comes to Supercell games in general. I'm saying all of this because it looks like it's going to happen eventually if we're getting messages like this from Frank, and I believe there has been other examples of Frank toying around with the idea and other dev team members as well. And I don't want, once this idea starts to be toyed around with more and actually makes its way into the game, for us to be broadsided or something like that. And I feel like even with power level 12 being a long ways off here in Brawl Stars, and I mean a long ways off, seeing that Frank says there's really no set timeline, it's just an idea, but it looks like Frank being taking the game lead here is on the right track as to what it would require here, a new power level. There has to be some sort of trade-off, a significant one at that here with the last sentence or statement. It would have to unlock something of significance. It has to be worth it, right? If we're using all of our resources to go to a brand new power level with all the different brawlers here in Brawl Stars, it has to be worth it. Not a Gears 2.0. It has to be something completely different that honestly we probably haven't even thought of. And the reason there is no set timeline, I'm assuming the dev team hasn't thought of yet as well. It's a scary idea of a new power level coming to the game, but again, if done right, if it is worth leveling up and it feels good to get to that new power level for that significant thing, I think it's going to be a great addition to the game in the future. And I mean in the future, once it makes sense, once we have enough brawlers maxed out, and power level 12 would be a thing for, I would say, a majority of the player base to then move ahead and enjoy the game with, right? The next step. If we're completely maxed out, it just makes sense for another thing to do in the game, going to power level 12. Look, I know this sounds mean, but I am very thankful that the dev team has an example of, once again, an adjacent game being Clash Royale as to what not to do with a brand new power level, and a great example as to what happened in the past with power level 11. They have the examples of things gone wrong, so it's up to them to come up with great ideas for power level 12 that makes sense, not repeating some of the mistakes that have been made in the past. But kind of in conclusion here, the final point that I want to get into is, of course, some really interesting ideas that Frank kind of implies in that Reddit post, saying that their focus is still on improving how people feel about power level 11 right now. It could be implied that there is still a pretty decently big feature here coming to the game that would shake up things a bit when it comes to the perspective around power level 11, if it is something that they are still wanting to improve upon up until this day. Now, this could just be me speculating wrong here, but a really interesting conversation was had towards the tail end of the most recent podcast, Time to Explain, where they discuss a potential shakeup to the already existing gameplay here that we have in Brawl Stars to a scale that seems to be pretty dang big. Take a listen to what Danny has to say here.
Are you planning on adding more depth to the Brawl Stars gameplay, like an ultimate or something? I can talk about that because I practiced with V. Yeah, what we haven't done in this year is like a big change to gameplay, right? And I think we want to have like as you Frank touched on that before, we don't want to have another gear moment where like we release something that is like more power for the brawler that is not, doesn't feel exciting, it doesn't feel like you're progressing. So we want to like do a big shake on the gameplay side as we had with gadget and star powers. It's like I don't know the dates or anything, but it's something we're planning already, that we want to add something to the gameplay.
We want to have a cool
that's
gameplay
exciting.
moment.
The question and the follow-up answer from Danny is really interesting, and in my opinion could be interpreted in a few different ways. The way they're discussing it really feels like a new power level coming to the game, right? A shake-up to the gameplay where it's not necessarily like Gears, where they don't want to repeat another gear moment, right? Which is great news if you ask me when it comes to a potential power level 12 around the corner. I hope we don't have a repeat to something like that, but I think it could also be interpreted in a different way. As we all know, the dev team is currently working still on power level 11 and how it feels to players here in the game, and I think something like this could be that thing that they're focusing on to make it feel better. A shake up to the gameplay obviously can mean a lot of different things, but at the very least it doesn't look like it's going to be, you know, just like third star powers or third gadgets or something that you level up to get this new power increase, right? A genuine shakeup, and that could be the answer to that ongoing work on power level 11. It's hard for me to speculate what it would look like at all, but I know we're in pretty dang good hands with the dev team. They haven't really led us astray up until this point, and they definitely have earned our trust, I would say. Really hoping we get additional information on this shakeup to the gameplay here in the future. future. We do know that a new roadmap for future updates is going to be coming out in a future update here right around the corner, which is really, really cool. Maybe we'll get some additional information on that. But at the end of the day, answering the original objective of this video, it seems like we are quite a ways off of power level 12. If you guys are worried about that coming to the game, and again, I don't hold it against you if you are, but when it comes to discussing a brand new power level coming to a game like Brawl Stars, it is more than likely a feature that will come out around the corner. But again, I feel like the dev team has seen so many examples of what not to do, and given the fact that they have done so much to make good on power level 11, I would say mistake that they made in the past, I am very optimistic as to what a power level 12 could look like here in Brawl Stars. But yeah, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this whole conversation around power level 12. Again, I don't think we need to worry about it just yet, but I think it's something that we should try to look forward to, not resent right away, right? Really looking forward to seeing what they do here after all the amazing updates that they come out here recently, the dev team at that. But yeah, everyone, hopefully you all enjoyed this episode here today. Hopefully I reassured some of you guys out there a little bit, and we can most definitely revisit this conversation if it is needed. But yeah, if you did enjoy it, make sure to slap a like on it. I really appreciate that. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Keep having fun with Brawl Stars, and we'll see you all in the next one. Adios and take care.